Hey everyone, my name is REDRUP. This is the It's Not a Phase podcast, and on this episode I'm joined by Mallory Knox vocalist Mikey Chapman. We talk about when and how the band got back together, their first shows back at Slam Dunk Festival this year, looking back at their album Asymmetry 10 years after its release, being a part of You Me at Six's final tour, and loads more. Before we get started, if you'd like to support the podcast, there's a few ways that you can do it, and they all just take a few seconds of your time. You can hit subscribe or follow wherever you're checking this out so you don't miss out on any future episodes. You can leave a review or a comment. You can give the podcast a follow on social media. And there's also a Patreon and a web store if you did want to go one step further. You can find all of the links to everything that I've just mentioned in the description of this episode, or you can head on over to itsnotaphase.co.uk. With that out of the way, here's my chat with Mikey. What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining me on this episode of the It's Not a Phase podcast, where I'm joined by Mikey Chapman, vocalist for Mallory Knox and fellow redhead. How you doing, man?
What's up, Zach? Yeah, not too bad. Thank you, man. Not too bad. How you keeping?
Yeah, all good, man. All good. Let's just kind of get into it. Mallory Knox are back after 5 years away. And, I guess you were away for a little bit longer than that. You stepped down just before that. How does it feel to be back? Like, I guess you have been back for a little bit now, but I guess it's all kind of digested. You've had those first shows back as well, so I guess it's real now.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's you often think, back is just kind of appearing and starting off again, but there really is like a big journey that's coming along with it. I still definitely feel like I'm very much on that journey. Been lots of realizations, lots of amazing highs and moments of catharsis, and it's just been wild. And I think this point, we're a few days away from tour now. I think to see that come full circle. I mean, Slam Dunk was amazing, and it was a singular thing to kind of work our way to. But I think to sort of get myself and ourselves back to some semblance of a sort of tour ready Mallory. It's been wild. It's been really cool, and I'm so excited to sort of see it come to fruition.
Yeah. And how does it feel? Time's passed. You're a bit older. Like, I don't know with you, but for me, like, I feel things a bit more than I did when I was in my 20s and stuff. So I imagine it's just a bit of a wake up call, like trying to be more active and healthy and stuff like that as well.
For sure, man. It's interesting that you worded it that way. It's like you feel things more. I think physically I feel things a lot more, for sure, which has been an interesting journey to try and get myself back into fitness and all that kind of stuff. Younger Mikey was definitely a little more fit than I am now. But in terms of feeling other things, less, having the perspective and having that sort of wherewithal to be able to look at things with like a refreshed perspective, to be able to look at things with a slightly more stable mindset, healthier mindset and all that kind of thing. It's something that I'm really looking forward to seeing a tour scenario from that kind of side of the world, rather than just sort of diving into it with both feet and kind of destroying myself along the way like I used to back in the day.
Yeah. I guess it's more like you're doing it because you want to do it now, and it's fun. Not that it wasn't before, but I guess back then maybe you were thinking more like business more than you probably are now. I don't know.
I think it's kind of I think it's more just that, there's a lot of tales that you tell yourself around what is rock and roll and that lifestyle, and the thing that we were all sort of, that pill that we were all kind of given in our younger years to, I suppose, make us idealize and kind of enjoy some of the trappings of the rock world as much as we do. And it's not to say that some of those things are not great and good fun and things, but I think especially when you're young and you're kind of stuck in the middle of it, there's a degree of that not being able to see the wood for the trees, and being so close to a situation or so involved emotionally or physically that yeah, you can definitely find yourself lost in that woods, in a way that I think, don't quote me on it because we haven't got on tour yet, but I think that now being older and a little bit wiser and having a more healthy relationship, shall we say, with music, I think it's going to be amazing. I'm really
Yeah.
looking forward to it.
Yeah. Well, just because like to briefly kind of catch everyone up. So, I mean, you stepped away from the band in 2018. They kind of continued until 2019. I think whilst you were away, you dabbled in a few bits and bobs, and you were part of a band called Black Sky Research as well. What have you, briefly putting it, like what have you been up to during your time away to kind of then get to this point where you're like, I want to let's do Mallory Knox again. Let's try it again.
Sure, man. Well, I mean, my journey is filled with far more non-music related things than it is music related things. I suppose for a start, a big goal for me coming away from Mallory was to sort of relearn myself as a person who exists regardless of music. So that for me that included a lot of I went traveling for quite a while, went backpacking and visited a bunch of friends in different parts of the world, and um, sort of got into a sort of regular 9 to 5, got stuck into a bunch of that sort of stuff. We obviously had the Great Plague 1 and 2 that we all had to suffer through over those years. So, I mean, just like everybody, I made a lot of learnings during that time. I've been fortunate enough to, as you touched on, dabble with some really wonderful creative folks who, having had conversations with them, knew that there was still an interest there for me to do little bits and bobs. So um, Luke Hicks and I did Black Sky Research, which we did like an EP of, which was super fun. I've done a bunch of writing for things like sync music, like stuff for TV and adverts and things like that. Done a few bits of writing for little short films and other things like that, as well as just stuff for myself and stuff for friends of mine that are all kind of musicians and creatives too. So, there's been a little bit of both sides of the coin, I think. Um, but I guess going back to your original question, some of the more important things that I've done have been around um, really getting stuck into unpacking kind of what parts of music that I loved, what parts that I didn't, the things that were weighing on me, the things that I really loved and I wanted to continue in my life, who facilitated those things and who didn't necessarily do those sorts of things. And I think over the course of having those conversations, having enough time away on my own little adventures, doing the other various side quests of my life, you start realizing that at least one of your main story arcs is this fantastic thing that you've been doing with your mates for so many years. And I think after time, not to go into it, but we had a few pretty big eye-opening moments for us as a community over the last few years, and I think that combined with those conversations and that time away really did just sort of make you think, well, what is like, there's no time like the present, right? What is the point in waiting? For better or for worse, we're older, wiser people now, and I just think now's the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you mentioned like, going away from the band. I imagine that must have been kind of a strange adjustment for you because I guess, because I think you started Mallory Knox when you were like 18, 19. And
Mm-hmm.
I guess your life for so many years up to that point when you did step down was the band, right? Like, and then you had to step away and I guess not only go into like a quote unquote normal job and all that kind of stuff, but quote unquote normal life as well, and just how to navigate that. And then who are you away from the band as well? So I guess that time away also made you realize who you are as a person away from the front man of a rock
Yeah.
band.
Absolutely, man. And, I have to preface this, and I have done the couple of times that I've talked about this. I wasn't living in some sort of gilded mansion or some private island or, living that sort of that millionaire lifestyle or anything. It certainly wasn't that by any means. Um, I think anyone that's done a job that's remotely a little bit out of the norm, the military or working on an oil rig or something that takes you away from your home on a regular basis. It's very, I'm making a lot of suppositions here, but it does create this kind of this otherness to what you do, compared to what you do at home. You spend much less time with your partners, building up relationships, or solidifying relationships that you know you don't necessarily want to lose, or whatever it is, you know, and those variables, I think those various elements kind of just create that little bit of distance in one form or another. So yeah, I wasn't sure where I was going with that. What was the original question?
Just saying, like, just into to quote unquote normal life from
Oh,
fronting a rock band and stuff. But
yeah,
yeah,
that was it. Sorry, yeah, that was my point. Yeah, so it's that kind of element of, I get that it certainly wasn't hugely out of the norm, but there was enough difference. I think, especially from coming out of college, kind of going into that kind of early 20s situation where I think a lot of people are, working hard and getting stuck into life and seeing a lot of things to come to fruition as a result of that. I think starting the band at the time we did was quite a poignant moment. And I think maybe if we'd started it a few years later, maybe our perspectives and how the things rolled out might have been a little different.
yeah,
And I wouldn't change it for the world, because we got to do some amazing stuff. But I think I owed it to myself to have that sort of period of time of reflection and growth and all that kind of stuff. And when everything kind of finished up for me.
yeah. Well, as well as you're saying like the time that you guys were a band and you came to be like, I think the time that you kind of blew up in the UK scene, like the UK scene was quite a definitive, like, you had bands like Lower Atlantis, you had Death Havana, Marmozets, Hilda May, We Are the Ocean Blitz Kids, Young Guns, Don Broco. Some of them are still around, some of them aren't, some of them are very different. How do you feel looking back at like how the scene was back then with those kind of bands like just making their mark alongside you?
Yeah, it just made me feel really nostalgic. Actually, I got like little goosebumps. You've named some names I haven't thought about for a very long time, and it's super cool. It was amazing. I mean, it's just rattling off a bunch of bands and people and creatives that you just have. I mean, each one of them were just phenomenal in their own right. Fantastic stories and experiences and influences on the wider community that we all kind of share in. And I think it goes without saying that being able to do like festivals and tours and spend time with people like that, as wild as some of them were, it was just incredible. It just added this fantastic like texture to that kind of era of our lives. And I hope more than anything, now I'm a bit older and a bit more reflective, that it had that same effect on those of us who were kind of growing up in that world, who were fans of that kind of music, that they could see the differences in the characters between a Hilda May and Marmozets, or and the way that their music reflected so much of that personality. It's it's a really wonderful time, I must
Yeah.
say, and it's lovely. I know there's a lot of people, you get the what do you call them, the sort of negative brigade, who sit around going, oh, it's another band come back from the dead. And it's like, yeah, well, maybe they've had their time away, maybe they've had their cup of tea and a chance to think as well, and maybe they're thinking the same thing, which is that this is a wonderful, wonderful part of being a human, having a taste in a genre like this, and having friends, and having built a community in a space like this. There's not huge amounts of pockets like this around the world that people get to enjoy these kind of things together with no bullshit to go along with it. And,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think, like, going back to your original question, like, to think that we were part of that in some form for this generation, it's just really lovely, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just touch on what you said there, like people, in the negative brigade kind of like complaining that a band's come back after taking some time off. Like, well, first off, you want it to come back, right? It's your decision, it's your band and stuff. But clearly, when you look
Yeah,
at the shows you did at Slam Dunk, right, I bet you were at least a little bit apprehensive of like, who's going to be there? Are our fans going to be there? Are they going to be like fair weather people just there? And it must have been so reassuring for you to go out and have that kind of reassurance after the band's been away for half a decade that they're there. Like clearly they missed you and clearly still want you. So fuck them.
yeah, absolutely, dude. And I must say, actually, I mean, I speak about the Negative Brigade as if we've been bombarded by it, but we really, really haven't. We've had some incredibly supportive and just loads of great supportive messages and all that kind of stuff. So it's more just been in the I think it's been in the after while I've been having a drink somewhere or something like that. It gets mentioned a few times. Oh, another band's back, I see.
Yeah.
Maybe it's tongue in cheek, but as you say, I mean, there was definitely that fear. I think when we were at Slam Dunk, there's loads of people in the crowd, but even then, your little monkey brains kind of sat there thinking they're probably here for All American Rejects. It's just like they're not here for you. There's no way they're here for you. And then we obviously got to do the shows we did, and the crowd behaved the way they did, which was just mind blowing.
Mm.
And it was the most life affirming, thing. It really just made us aware that that having that time away really has made very little impact on people's opinions, and that music really does kind of stand the test of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been really cool.
Yeah. Well, while we're speaking of, live shows, let's kind of stop looking behind. Let's look to the future. You've got this Asymmetry 10th anniversary tour coming up later this month.
Mhm.
How are you feeling about getting back to doing your first full tour after coming back together now?
Well, it's kind of a mixed bag of emotions, I think. I'm so excited about doing like the tour thing again. I always like to think it's sort of like an adult kind of music camp. You just get
Yeah.
all your like buddies and friends and people with similar mindsets and stuff, all just hanging around on buses together until the early hours, and playing video games, playing shows, and that kind of thing. So that sort of element, that nostalgic element for me, I think I'm really looking forward to. Obviously, the shows. I was looking at some of the ticket numbers earlier in the week, and every show is strong as fuck. More so than I think we could have ever kind of hoped for, really. So I know that we're going to have busy shows. Hopefully, people that are there to party and to have a good time with us during the set. But then there is the other side of things. I touched on earlier that being a bit older now, and I don't sing half as regularly as I used to. So a fitness element, both vocally and rest of my body, is a pretty high concern.
Yeah.
Um, we're doing the best we can to mitigate those sorts of things, and I've been singing plenty to along to the old tracks and stuff, and we're as good as we can be for what we're going into, and yeah, so it's kind of a big mixed bag of emotions. But I know for a fact that once we're out on the road and we're there and we're doing it, it's just all going to be good vibes.
Yeah.
We've got some great friends of ours coming out. My friend Harry's band, Call Me More, and then a band called Girl and a band called Heartless. They're going to sort of swap for the supports, and they're good friends of ours as well. Both fantastic bands, and it's just going to be like wall to wall mates fest.
Yeah. That's what you want. A good time on stage and off stage as well.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you coming down?
What are you? I can't remember the exact date. Are you coming to Manchester?
We are going to Manchester. Yeah, we'll be at the Ritz. So let me know, man. Well,
Yeah.
we should have this conversation after the
Yeah,
podcast.
we'll sort that out later. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as I'm not stuck in
Yeah.
work, man, I'll be there.
Amazing, dude.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Well, are these shows, are you going to be playing the full album, or is it just kind of like a big chunk of the album to kind of celebrate its 10 years?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a mixed bag. We initially thought about going for Asymmetry in full, but it's been such a long time since we've been together. It's been such a long time that we haven't been with fans and all that kind of stuff. I think everybody really is just, including us, is just jonesing to get out there and play all the bangers, basically.
Yeah.
Asymmetry's full of them. As I say, I've been doing lots of practicing, singing up against it, but there's a few songs it's just like, we don't need those in the set when we could be replacing them with songs that we know that are going to really matter to people.
Yeah.
Also, it leans into our general theme that we want to lean into with this tour, which really is the kind of reflective element of the 10 years. That the fact that so many of these rooms are going to be full of the exact, well, there's going to be a lot of people in there that are the exact same people that were in the rooms 10 years ago when this record came out, and seeing them a little older, a little grayer, or they've got little kids, or, they're married now, or, whatever it is that life has thrown at them. They're going to be there with that, and we'll be there with our own things, and we'll be just sort of catching up. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yes.
kind of just it's having that moment to kind of stop and go, we've been doing this in this industry, like hanging out and enjoying rock music for at least the last 10 years, and like, look at this kind of thing. I like that feeling. I like the thought that that's kind of the order of the day for me, for these shows. So yeah, it's more of a celebration of the time and to be back, I think,
Yeah.
rather than sitting there and granularly going through song by song.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess, like you say, you might see the more so than you did before, like the generational thing. Like you'll see like the parents with their kids and stuff like that, and there might even be like
Yeah.
fans there that weren't around when you guys like first came to be, which is a bit of a scary but also a bit of a cool thought.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, and there's people my age just shuffling around on Zimmer frames and
Yeah.
singing back in my day. But yeah, I don't know. There's this. I don't want to get all philosophical about it and stuff, but yeah, there is something this time coming back, being in front of people and singing and performing, and I felt it very much so at Slam Dunk, which was this kind of next phase thing for me, that sort of circle of life kind of moment of realizing that all the old rockers that we know now we're all our age, and then all the young ones now, I remember being that age, and do you know what I mean? It's just this cycle of creativity and performance and celebration and fun, and and we all kind of get washed through it as time goes on, and it just for us it's just this new benchmark of this new era, and I'm here for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess as well, like you saying, you can bring out the bangers and stuff. Like it gives you a chance now that you're back. You've been away for a few years, that you can play those songs that you love so much from the other albums and stuff that you've obviously not had a chance to play for so long. Like you get to do that.
Totally, man. It's been weird, like practicing them again, honestly, because I thought it would be like, you wouldn't, there'd be a lot to pick up, but it's been a bit like riding a bike, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Which has been, so yeah, I'm kind of, I'm getting like a buzz playing certain songs, and realizing that they're in the set. It's, yeah, we've actually got time to fit that one in.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just chuffed, man. The tour, it's so close now. It's just kind of want the next few days so we can just crack on.
Yeah. Move along. Yeah.
Come
Um,
on.
well, looking back at Asymmetry, like 10 years later, like you said, you've kind of been revisiting it to relearn the songs and make sure they're all tight and stuff. How are you feeling about how it sounds and how it stood the test of time in your eyes and to your ears now, like a decade later? How do you think it stands?
Yeah, it's a really good question, actually. I think, thankfully, I'm quite proud of it. I'm not sitting there going like, God. you know, um, we always had a really, really good way of producing new music and being creative together. I think there wasn't a lot that we ever let slip through the cracks. If we weren't sure about it, it generally didn't tend to find its way on a record. And then obviously For Asymmetry was our first kind of major label record, and with that came like the producer that we worked with, Gil Norton, and that was just that extra layer, I think, of quality. And I think listening back to it now, it's like I love Signals so much, but you can tell there's a big difference between the two. I think in terms of quality of like just the general quality and feel of the record. It's not to say I've got mad love for Signals still as well. But yeah, looking at it from a pragmatic kind of taking a step back and looking at it, I think it's sick. I do think if someone dropped it next week, I'd be kind of like, yeah, we'll do all right.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just like maybe I'm biased, but yeah, it's got a vibe. it's still got some bangers on there, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Like I think that the worry is like sometimes when you have those with bands like have the albums from like 2014 or maybe even older, like you can sometimes tell that it's of a specific time.
Oh,
Um,
dude, absolutely. I think that's kind of one of the things that I was quite proud of, really, because let's be honest, like in the last 10, 15 years, there's been a lot of subgenres within the genre, you know,
yeah,
and nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. But those very hard pushes to one side or another with that styling, I think does create a bit of a time capsule feel to it, you know. You
yeah,
listen back to it, like, oh my God, is that a thing that we used to do? Like, is that acceptable now? Probably not. Whereas I feel like our stuff, for better or for worse, was kind of sat in the middle enough that it appealed to a bunch of different people, and also meant that we never really lent too much into, you know, the emo side of things, or the southern rock side of things, or the hardcore side of things, or you know, yeah, we had a nice, at least in my, again, maybe I'm just praising, you know, a child of mine, but it's yeah, it stood the test of time, in my opinion. Feel
yeah, yeah.
free to disagree.
Well, I think it's not just like in sound, like, you know, sometimes you have those bands that are like, yeah, 2014, bitch, and then automatically you've got, you know, automatically made it like a specific time thing because you've said a year during the song, or, you
Oh
know,
yeah,
during the pandemic,
true.
people would write songs about COVID, and it's like, right, well, that's a song of that specific time now. That's gonna age badly. Like,
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Maybe that's happened with one of our songs, 1949, but I mean, that, I don't think it's particularly reflective of the time it was written or
hmm,
1949 either. So I don't know. I feel like if time has a relevance to the song, I think that can actually work in its favor. Maybe I suppose it depends how it's used.
yeah,
But the stuff that we generally did, you know, and Sam, bless him, wrote like a whole bunch of the lyrics and the content, and it all came very much from you know the heart. I think their concepts more so that stand the test of time a lot more because it's about loss, because it's about desire, because it's about, you know, inadequacy or anger or whatever it is. They're all principles that come back around. You know,
yeah,
they're not defined by a top man T-shirt or the amount of hairspray you got in or
yeah.
whatever it is. You know?
Or a TV show or something like that. Yeah,
Or a TV show, or I mean, you name your thing, right? Yeah, they have a universality like that, I think, and I think that's something that myself, and speaking on behalf of the rest of the boys, I think we're probably all very proud of.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, you touched a minute ago about like the fact that Asymmetry was when you joined a major label. I mean,
Mm.
kind of briefly looking back at that experience and remembering making that album, like, how were you feeling about that? That's kind of like, you know, joining the big boys or whatever you want to call it, like doing something big time like that. Were you a bit apprehensive
Yeah,
going to the
well,
studio and stuff, like doing a major label debut?
I think there was apprehension in different forms, for different reasons, I guess. I don't think there was any in the sense of like, well, we've got to impress the label, we've got to do this, we've got to do that. From that perspective, I think if anything, we were really excited about the fact that we had enough money to sort of back ourselves and to put some serious time and effort into it. You know, that
Yes.
someone was willing to finance us to the same degree that we were willing to back ourselves and had been, like, for years up until that point. I think the main anxiety probably came with the fact it was a second record. You know, that second anything curse is always lingering. You know, second movie, you know, the follow up record, whatever it is. You know, we wanted to make sure that we encapsulated so much of what Mallory was and had been, and what made it appeal to so many people. But equally, at the same time, we were a bunch of years older. We were that much more accomplished. We had new tastes and new ideas and what we wanted to be and how we wanted to do things. And so, trying to get that marriage between the two, you know, it's always a scary tipping point, I think, because all of that stuff that you worked from since you were, you know, a teenager suddenly can just go down the toilet if it just doesn't connect, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, I think the anxiety or the apprehension was probably there. But as I say, I mean, the excitement of the potential of what that meant, I mean, Gil Norton did The Colour and Shape, right? I sat there and sat with his Grammy that he'd had for that, and knowing that you had someone like that behind you, and then you've got the label itself behind you, and our team, that had gone from strength to strength. We picked up a booking agent and all that kind of stuff. All of it on paper, just the most exciting things. And leaning back into that original point that I made, I think earlier in the chat, like having that that kind of idealistic idea of what you need to be a rock band, what you need to, really make it or whatever. We'd kind of checked off 90% of the kind of requirements to be a rock star by that point, So I think we were sitting pretty high on ourselves for sure.
Yeah. Well, looking to the future again, you're also next year in March joining New Me at 6. I think you're supporting them on 4 shows: Liverpool, Sheffield, Newcastle, and Nottingham, I think.
Yeah, that's the one.
How are you feeling about, being such a significant part of their final chapter as a band?
Yeah, I'm just stoked, to be honest, mate. We got the message about it a little while ago, and it was just a no-brainer, really. We've been around the block with Unit 6 for so many years. Such lovely blokes. They make great music, and they've been entertaining people in a wholesome and like positive way, as we've always tried to, for longer than we have, actually. They on a number of different occasions have kind of taken us under their wing, and we've had really good chats with them, and just solid guys doing solid stuff for a long period of time. And the fact that they're kind of doing this glory lap, it was a no-brainer, to be honest. We really get to spend a bit of time with them, which is kind of nice timing from our part as well. It wasn't intentional, but we're kind of just back up to match strength, ready to jump on and have a good time with them. From what I gather, the shows are pretty much all sold out as well. So it's just going to be, wall to wall, people just there for the good vibes. Hopefully we can add a bit to that. And yeah, it's just to start the year off right,
Yeah.
I like this idea of continuing a kind of culture of collaboration and like making shows as sick as they can be. You only have to look at their the roster, shall we call it, on the tour poster to know that they've very much had the same.
Oh, the Da Vinci
idea.
Code. That's trying to work out who's supporting who.
Like When We Were Young festival, but just for one band tour. Yeah, man. I mean, why wouldn't you? You know what I mean? They've made so many great friends, so many talented friends over the years, if I do say so myself. And I just think it's the perfect way to do it. I really do.
Yeah, go out with a bang.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I say, the shows will be wicked. Greases the gears for us nicely next year, and I'm up for it. It's gonna be amazing.
Awesome. Well, I think we've covered pretty much everything, but any other plans for 2024, 2025 that you can talk about? I'm sure everyone's asked you this, but new music on the horizon, or is that kind of not being discussed just yet?
It's always being discussed. I mean, the second there's a guitar in the room, writing is always being discussed. What we're doing now is, we're a lot older, a lot wiser, and just kind of in a place now where music has to serve us. Music has to be good times only, and it has to be worth the effort. And I think for all of us, we have different ideas on what that is and how much we involve ourselves and all of that sort of thing. So, we're going through the motions one step at a time, being kind to ourselves, and having good conversations and working things out along the way. So, I do think some semblance of music will find its way eventually, but it's kind of a watch this space thing, I think, for now. And we've got a bunch of shows. I think get those out of the way, get ourselves nice and happy at the end of the year, knowing that we really gave 2024 a good go, and then we kind of lean into 2025 with wherever we end up. So cryptic.
The mystique.
Oh, mystique.
Well, sounds good, man. Yeah, really excited to see what happens with this like reboot, I guess, of Mallory Knox. Yeah, and thank you for taking the time to speak with me. Any final words before I let you go and enjoy the rest of your evening?
No, man, it was my pleasure, and thank you very much for your time. Appreciate talking to you.
Of course, man. Of course. Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully, I'll speak to you soon.
It was lovely to talk to you.
Yeah, you too, man. You too. Take care of yourself, and yeah, hopefully, speak to you soon.
Nice one, brother. Take care.
See you later, dude. And that's it. Thanks so much for tuning in to It's Not a Phase. If you enjoyed this episode, then don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Leave a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube. Follow the podcast on social media, and maybe even join the Patreon or grab some merch from the store. You can find everything that you need at itsnotaphase.co.uk. That's itsnotaphase.co.uk. Thanks again. Hopefully catch you on the next one. And remember, it's not a phase, it's a lifestyle.